some things that we wanted to discuss about some edits that are
Yeah, there'll
needed?
be a motion to approve and then a second, and then when it comes up for discussion, we'll make the changes.
Okay, sounds good. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Alyssa makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Okay, so discussion. Yes, Adam.
I have something to discuss. So when I took the minutes, I used some, not the best words, to outline our final conversation of the evening at the last Parks and Rec meeting. So I just want to change those, make them a little softer, make them possible, a little harsh.
Okay.
And also, in the minutes, I used the word unanimous, which was not accurate either, because no vote was taken, no consensus of anybody agreeing to the discussion that was made. So the final line, you just adjust to say that.
Yeah, the fundamental things.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I'd like to edit that to say there is discussion regarding guidance from the city. In regards to the board's budget. A desire for clarification.
Okay. I also had a couple of things as well on the, what would be page 2 of our current packet.
Sure.
In the paragraph regarding the tour of Minnesota,
Which paragraph?
it's the third paragraph down on page 2.
Yes.
It starts with Morgan introduces tour of Minnesota camping request.
Yep.
A few things with that one. I understand the want to put in with the parentheses of where camping is prohibited. I
Right.
think that that could be phrased a little bit differently about, whether it just be taking it out of the parentheses and, saying that it was noted that there's no camping signs. The other one that caught my eye was further down in that paragraph where it says argument ensues regarding no complaints in the past.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was an argument, so it couldn't be changed to discussion was had.
I'd say argumentative is typically in oration and in rhetorical argument it has less of a connotation of negativity.
Okay, but
That's
okay,
But yeah, we can change that word.
because
If you're the public reading this, you're like, oh, they got in an argument over that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I can see that. Discussion.
yeah, is there another word?
You can use discussion. Every time you want,
Sure,
right?
sure.
I'm not a fan of redundancy.
Yeah, no worries.
Doing things over and over.
You want just discussion?
Yeah, just discussion would be, that way then we're not having to worry about rephrasing the whole
Yeah, sure. That sounds
sentence.
good.
And then you wanted, you want this, where camping is prohibited, what did you want on that?
Can we just take out the parentheses, put a comma after Whiteside Park, noting that there's no camping signs in place at the park?
Where no camping signs are posted.
Yes, yeah.
wasn't here for much of this meeting, I think I didn't, but, like 2 sentences from the bottom of page 2, something really funny is said, and they said it's on maps. Is that?
I don't think it's significant. I was always told right on everything that happened, but I guess
Yeah, maybe exactly.
I've never been a minute.
Relevant facts.
never been a minute taker. In fact, stepping up to do the minutes was just kind of we needed someone to do it, so I volunteered.
Go ahead and strike that whole sentence out.
Yeah. Any others? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. Any additions or deletions from the agenda? We do have 2 of them listed on the smaller packet in red regarding the Ely Dog Park rules as well as the single track bike trails. Besides those 2, do we have any other additions? If no other additions, could I have a motion to add these 2 into our agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Amy makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jen seconds. Wonderful. Any discussion about adding it? We'll get to the discussion about about them here in a minute. But all those in favor of the additions?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. That goes on there. So those will go down under new business. And next up, we've got Scott with some reports and information for us.
Alright. Let's see, which one do I want to start with? We'll just start with the normal packet and the report. I'll just go over, Morgan, you had emailed Harold and I some questions with some stuff that came up the last meeting because unfortunately neither one of us could be here. I guess everybody's got the packets and things that got the answers. I don't feel like I need to necessarily go over them, but did anybody have any questions on those? As far as the answers to the questions?
So they got kind of divided up in the packet. So if you go from page 4, it's to page 7 with the one email in red.
Oh, yeah, good, sorry about that.
And no worries. And then in between is a secondary email from information that we have questions on for follow-up from our last meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, let's see, I was gonna discuss the fitness court too, and just kind of bring up, did have another meeting with them, and, you know, it basically came to fruition that 70% at least of the cost will be on the city, or have to find some other funding. And just with a lot of the projects we have going on right now, it obviously isn't our highest priority, and there is the ability to do the, you know, having things along the tree trail, it's kind of, that's their unique, how they have it set up. So I did talk to them about that, and I really said, you know, I think for 2025, we're probably gonna pass, and it might be something for 2026 that we can further look into, once we were, you know, securing more funding, and with, you know, having the art aspect of it, you know, maybe there's other people that want to maybe get involved with this, so not just necessarily the fitness aspect, but the art aspect. So we can take time, it's not urgent by any means, we can still look at that, so as long as everyone's okay with that, we'll move on from that. That was it. So nobody else had any questions on the responses from the emails or anything? Clarification on that? Okay. Jump to, where are we at next here? We'll just jump to like the rec upgrades that we were talking about. So I know as far as having like a fundraiser or something kind of came up, the city funds, things like that. I included guidance from the League of Minnesota Cities as far as what cities can and can't do for fundraising and donations. And, you know, it's really kind of narrow. The police departments can raise money for National Night Out, community events, things like that. The fire department can do their boot campaigns for their relief associations, but outside of that, the city can't really just go, let's say, door to door, and solicit, hey, we want to build this, donate to us. There are certain things that, if somebody comes in and says, I want to donate to the Park and Rec program, here's a check for $1,200. We can take those in-kind donations and things like that. That's where it's important, we fall back kind of on our clubs and organizations that are nonprofit, they can fundraise and do those things. So again, pickleball is very interested in being involved with the project at the rec center. They said 95 members, so they're a nonprofit, so there's some fundraising opportunities there. The Blue Line, we talked, and we aren't really in a position to give an amount that we'd be able to donate at this time, but we will help out and things like that. Trying to figure out who else would utilize that space, outside of the season, it's hard to put it.
Yeah, and I guess just to that point, pickleball, I've worked with them probably for the last 5 years, and they've had ideas, wanting to have another space. One of the concerns that they've had is what they participate in, it can't be just like open for everybody and everything, if they're scheduling pickleball play, we can't then have it for the skate park, or you can't, so it's gotta be kind of specific use, and that's where the thought was on the outdoor skating rink, utilizing that space. Obviously in the winter we're using it for skating, and in the summer it could be used for some wheel hockey event, something like that, but it'd be easy to set that up as a pickleball court, and I think you measured up, we could get 4 in there. So that 4 plus the 5th that's on the basketball court, and then just be a matter of how you schedule other, like ECR or somebody else that wants to utilize some of those courts, how you schedule that. So I think that has kind of been the location we've always gravitated back to. A couple of our members were, well, we can't have kids playing wheel hockey because they're going to mess up our lines. Well, we know that's not going to mess up the lines, but it's make that concrete, and actually, I think Heidi was involved. I think Bill, way back when in 2006-07, when that rec facility was developed over there. Original plan was to put concrete down. The original rink up at the Lincoln School, actually where Spectrum Health is, those 3 Spectrum Health facilities, the assisted living, that's where the rink used to be. And that was blacktop, the 2-minute surface rink. What happened there though, you get one sunny day in March and you had craters in your ice because the ice would melt. So that's where it's always been thought to put concrete down. To do that there, we should put new boards, and at the same time then probably do some upgrades to our lighting. The lighting was moved from the old Lincoln rink. Might have even been originally, if you know where the police impound is, by the old city garage, that used to be the rink. So that rink was there. Prior to that, it was where the Pioneer Apartments are. So it's moved a few times. But no, I think that would be a good opportunity, and actually, Scott and I sat down this morning and we were kind of talking about some short, mid, and long-range planning. And to me, the short-range plan is to work with the pickleball club, see what resources they have available to them. You have members from different communities in the Ely area, the townships, if they'd be willing to help participate or raise some funds through their nonprofit pickleball club. And then, looking at a project, maybe it isn't a 26 project, or maybe it's a 27 project, but as Julie knows, culture and tourism dollars, we leveraged some of those for the skate park years ago. And so there's some opportunities there. But first, we got to find a location. We've looked at the tennis courts at the college, not a good fit. Other green spaces, it's tough because you need the infrastructure, you need power, you need water, you need sewer. Here we've got everything. Everything's there. It's just, the boards are now 2006, they're going to be going on 20 years. We've replaced almost all the sheeting on them over the last few years, the 3/4 inch green treated. And what the hope would be is to put some fiberglass and aluminum framed boards. Actually, Scott and I are, made some contact with a couple of arenas that are looking to upgrade their board systems here in the next year or two. Just seeing if those are available to do it all at one time. Because to try to put concrete and move those boards, it's not gonna work. Those are pinned into the dirt, you know, they're on posts into the ground, and if we could put some, do a concrete slab, 6-inch slab, and then bolt the boards down, or make them modular, so in summer, maybe you remove a couple sections that aren't necessary. One of the issues we had this summer is we've had kids on their bikes ripping around in there. We fixed that by locking the gate, but, you know, I think if we were to get pickleball activity down there, that would help. More people will be there, more people will be using it, you know, so.
Do you envision having the building open for restrooms and stuff?
Yeah, I think if you get the pickleball club, which is a non-profit group, we could come up with an agreement with them as to how that would be facilitated. You know, they'd be responsible for that space. Of course, working with ECR and what ECR's activities there are. But it would be just like the skating warming area is used in the winter for ice skaters. That same area could be utilized by pickleball players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, it'd be far superior to what they currently have
Yeah.
without actual running water, right? Just having a portable toilet facility. So yeah, that's kind of a short to mid-range plan as far as projects in my mind. So that's something, I believe it'll probably be a couple $100,000. I think the boards we haven't even really put a price on those yet because I don't know. You know, we'll look at some of these arenas that are currently going through that plan, and whether an old set are available and would be adequate or not, we don't know. But if opportunity comes that we can salvage something from somewhere and reskin them, you know, that's something to look at. Those original boards were all built by volunteers. That was Young Life that did all that work. I think at the time Potlatch gave a sizable donation for the lumber. So Potlatch had a pretty big presence.
So as Scott said earlier, we're not really able to do like donations for this kind of thing. Would it be something that we could go to some of these other nonprofits like Pickleball or like Blue Line? Because one of the things that was brought up at the October meeting was doing like what they did at the baseball field, which was having like put your business's name up for X amount of dollars
Sure.
on one of the boards kind of thing. Is that something that we could say, hey, if you guys are looking for ways to fundraise for yourself to make this happen,
Yeah,
here's an
no,
idea.
I think if you see a lot of gymnasiums now, swimming pools everywhere I go across the state, follow my kids in their sports, a lot of facilities now, even at school campuses, have some sort of corporate sponsor. So naming rights, a lot of times those have a duration, 10 years, $10,000 or $1,000 a year for however long. That's something that's done. But through pickleball as an organization, I think they'd be the big, I don't know, momentum behind, driving force behind that. So we probably should reach out to them and go, okay, here's a thought. I brought it to them before and they were a little cold to it. I think we want our own space and it's only for us, and, you know,
But that's, I mean, it's a recreation area, and if that's what it's gonna turn into, is it's gonna turn into a battleground. I mean, personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, okay, then we're gonna do this, but that means then that other people aren't gonna be able to use it. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, because I wanna make sure that it's usable for everybody.
yeah, and I think it's a matter of, as a pickleball group, what's their needs? They don't need it, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, I wouldn't think. So it's just working out those details, and if there then gets to be a group that wants to do some wheel hockey, in the summer, it's pretty simple, actually.
Yeah.
That's, when we get to those leases too, that's where that kind of comes into play, is here's kind of your times that you get, or this is how many hours you get a week, or whatever. I think that, that's well, and then, I attach some funding opportunities in here, IRRR, things like that, other cities have done. And then Silver Bay was a pretty good example, I'm still waiting to get more information back from them, but I mean, they just redid their outdoor rink. Looks like they got 5 pickleball courts in there. But that was, their boards came donated from a previous arena, and they were used, and they look perfectly fine. You know, so like, that's exactly what we're looking at trying to do.
And that's right next to their arena.
Right next to their arena, yeah.
And we wouldn't be putting on tennis courts, because what I have seen in communities where they try to do joint usage of tennis courts, it becomes pretty contentious.
As a tennis player, I could vouch for that.
Yeah, there's a lot more people playing pickleball than tennis.
Yeah.
So when there's specific times given that it's gonna be tennis only, and the pickleball players don't see anybody playing, they automatically assume, well, pickleball should take over the rest of the time slot. So it's kind of interesting to see. Mhm. One of the fastest growing sports though, so. And being it fits into our other, you know, as we've discussed at previous meetings, you know, trying to maintain the existing recreational assets we have is a priority. And this is, you know, it's coming down the road where we're gonna have to replace those boards, one way or another. So let's take advantage of that opportunity. And again, it's gonna take a year planning and then looking for funds and how all of these always work. IRRB funds, if we were to go after culture and tourism, probably get $25,000. We have to match that dollar for dollar. So then that match typically comes from the city is tax. There's a tax levy for the project, or it comes from other donations. The other project that was put in your packet, the Mountain Lake Trails, there's a perfect example. We're leveraging St. Louis County funds, Minnesota Power funds, Ely Nordic Ski and Bike Club funds, FRTP Federal Recreational Trail funds with IRRB money. So it's $400-some thousand project where we're getting $200,000 from Fed money through the DNR, $100,000 through the IRRR, and then the other money that comes into place. So that's, you know, these projects take a few years to put together. You know, we're still working on the environmental review on this, for example. We're going to do a full-fledged environmental review, archaeological study, you see that in the packet, you know, those types of things. What comes attached to some of these funding programs, but you just don't ask for the money to give you a big chunk and you go, oh, geez, guys, what should we spend this on? You know, so it's.
Is the process to collect the funds, if the city can't necessarily fundraise as like the hub for that? If like the pickleball crew was the powerhouse behind this, would they collect all of that and they would apply for the grant and then eventually make one big donation, or how does that?
No, the grants would be applied through the city, and as they would take in funds on their own, we could then put those into a dedicated fund.
Gotcha.
Assigned directly for this specific project. We have done that for many projects. The Veterans Memorial down on Miners Drive by the Truzona parking lot, that was culture and tourism grants. And actually at that time, culture and tourism grants could only be applied for by a 501c3, a nonprofit. So at that time, Incredible Ely was the applicant. They received those funds, and then the rest was fundraised by the Veterans organization that put the project together, and those funds came to the city. We worked with them, we led the contracts, we did the project, and that's how that was done. So it's, yeah, we can take money, we take donations for like cemetery beautification, and then those funds are used for the maintenance of the cemetery. But yeah, we don't typically go and solicit for donations. Our role is just a little bit different. So.
Yeah, like intergovernmentally, do you? I mean, intergovernmentally, can you do some fundraisers, or just say this is a proposal and it's an intergovernmental?
Well, we write the grants.
Right.
You know, we write the grants, and those are by resolution of the city council. So if this is a project that, you know, you work on and this becomes a real project, at a certain point there needs to be a recommendation from Park and Rec that goes to the council, and then the council moves that application forward, whether it be an IRRB grant, an FRTP grant, other DNR trail grants. So there are, you know, the DNR would be another kind of another governmental fund that we draw from, but those are all, these programs that you apply now, hopefully get money a year from now to construct something 18 months from now. So it's just, I know sometimes it's a painful process, but, it just takes persistence, I think is what I see. As you see on this map there, the mountain bike trails, everything in green is what we built since about 2001. We've got almost 10 miles of single track out there, and this took a bunch of work. That's on school trust line. That's on school trust line. We got over on the east end there, some of that is on St. Louis County up there, and then beyond that, there's some U.S. Forest Service land as well. So, you start working with St. Louis County, the school trust, the DNR forestry, land and minerals, it's kind of, you got a lot of agencies, Forest Service, of course, but everything in yellow is now what we're trying to develop, and this all requires another archaeological study, looking at was there anything, of cultural significance in these areas, that sort of thing. So it's the area you see Chalet Loop, which is going to be a really cool loop, because of this being school trust land and there being a gravel lease just on the south side of that. The concern from Land and Minerals is there could possibly be a gravel lease in the future, and those trails would encumber it, so they don't want to see that developed. So that's an area we're kind of backing away from. And then this is that area down along Miners Lake that kind of across from the rec center. This is the north side of that loop, and then the next map is the south side of that loop. But it's that's about a mile loop down along the kind of below the bluff line. Yeah, there's the south side of that. And as you see right across from the skating rink there, the bottom left, right across from there is the area that we kind of filled a few years ago for a place to launch fireworks. We did the fireworks there one year, and the prevailing wind, yeah, we can't launch fireworks. Well, that's why we picked a different spot, but right down there is that area I think the kids refer to as the grotto.
Yeah.
It's kind of down in that area, so this 1 mile trail loop would kind of give a pretty cool route to that area. And of course, it could be multi-use for people hiking, walking, and I think it's a pretty cool area down along the pit edge there. 15 years ago, you didn't want to have any recreational activity around any pit. It was put up a barbed wire fence, keep everybody away from it. You don't want anybody near it. Well, now, Red Hat is a perfect example where you take the fence down, you start developing recreational activities. And if you had told me there'd be a swimming beach on the pit behind Iron World 20 years ago, I'd say there's no way you'll get arrested if you go down there. Now there's kayaks and canoes and people biking all over down there. And this would be a good opportunity really close to town where the kids right now that have to, they bike all the way down to Hidden Valley and ride. Here would be a loop along with the college and the U.S. Forest Service area where we got those loops planned as well. So no, and these are projects we've been working on for, again, a good decade and a half. Dr. Anderson, the retired dentist in town, been working with Scott on these for a long time. And I think if anybody is a mountain biker or has been out there, they are pretty spectacular. And those were all funded through some donations to the ski club. They raised money, what was it, wanted 100 people to give $200. I forgot what their program was a couple of years ago, but yeah, they raised $50,000 through doing that. And that's how that got built. And Ely Nordic Ski Club, Ely Nordic Bike and Ski Club, they changed their name, but, are the ones that maintain that. We help where necessary, but 99% of those trails are maintained by the club with their grant aid and donated labor. So to continue to grow that area, I think is big. But that's just an example of how the funding
want to get involved with it, I'm guessing then that they would put what times they want to sign up for to be able to use it, what times of the year. We'd have to have a schedule of some kind somewhere.
Yeah, I think with leases, what the main purpose of lease would be, in my mind, is like what we've done with adult league softball fields. Those originally built in, I think, 80, 81. They did get a state grant to build those. And at the time, they leased the property from the city. And the understanding was they would be the sole responsible party to maintain those and also provide liability insurance. Over time, it's changed a little bit. We assist out there, obviously, a lot. Leagues, it used to be huge. Used to have a ton of teams. And now it's dwindled in numbers, just like a lot of activities have happened. So that's how that has changed. But still, there is a lease. They have to provide liability insurance that is indemnifying the city for their organized league activities. So pickleball. The pickleball it's a true, it's a club, it's a group. They would indemnify the city by having liability insurance. And also, it indemnifies, typically they'll have board insurance as well. So if they have a board and you come and you play pickleball and you break your leg, I'm the board president, you don't sue me personally, so it's unfortunate, but that is kind of the way you gotta protect yourself. So that's how I see the leases working. Who is responsible for what? Not necessarily as a big revenue source, it's just who's responsible for it. When the lines on the pickleball court peel up, who's responsible for repainting those? The pickleball netting, those sorts of things. We maintain the building, have the building available for their use, those types of things. If you had other groups interested in putting together, say, a wheel hockey league in the summer, then, Park and Rec would work with that group and say, okay, here's who we got. We got pickleball doing this. Are you guys interested in having some sort of allotted time? Not necessarily for a fee, just more or less who's responsible for what. Julie with ECR, Julie has taken hold and manages the rec facility as far as programming for youth after school. That's been a big key. And I know Julie has shared this with me, it's consistency. It's making sure, it's consistent. It's not, we'll have it this week, but next week we don't have it. So it's just having some consistency. So that's why it's important to try to maintain their schedule and then working other groups into it rather than ECR trying to schedule around whatever group it might be there.
And as far as that scheduling, I think it would be a good idea to retain a good portion, probably a third of that schedule as open schedule.
Yeah.
If you start scheduling pickleball, and then other groups express interest, you're gonna have a heck of a time trying to get pickleball to give that space back up.
Yeah, very good point. With the basketball court, Wes Gibson and his wife, many years ago, they donated $65,000 to build that basketball court, and then they bought some computers and other equipment for the rec center at that time. So, the purpose was they wanted to see it used for multiple groups, multiple activities. And yeah, to Adam's point, if you say, okay, 15 minutes every 2 hours is going to be, available for basketball, well, that ain't gonna work either. But it's just, I don't think they play pickleball every day or, for multiple hours a day. But no, I think that'd be a good idea. And again, let's try to get the facility utilized as much as we can. And we'll have additional funds available by the groups using it.
Also, to circle back to the boards and potential board sponsorship for businesses, you may want to check state statutes regarding recreation facilities that accommodate youth sports or youth programs. There may be restrictions on certain types of advertising, whether it's casinos and gambling, alcohol,
Oh, sure.
tobacco, just to kind of keep that in
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of like what the Little League has.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see that. It'd be great to see it on the girls' softball field, things like that. So yeah, I think it should be looked at.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Scott, Narrow, do you have more for us?
No, I think the only thing I was just gonna touch on, once, I am gonna work on the lease agreements for each, designated group. Pickleball, the dog-friendly field, or whatever, we're gonna call it, dog park. With that, it's the adult softball, youth softball, and then the little league baseball, that's kind of the five that we're looking at right now to get lease agreements on, so I'll work on those, once I have those drafted up, I'll bring to you guys to all look at, and go over those, and kind of, see if they can be tweaked or whatever, but, yeah. Otherwise, yeah, the other discussion points I can bring up under the other agenda items, so.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Moving right along, we did not have any requests to appear, so we're gonna move right into new business. First would be the Ely Dog Park. Some rules that were sent over, you can see those on page A001 in the packet with the red lettering.
So just I'll just update, quick on that, try that as a separate update, but since it's on the agenda now. So they are still working on getting licensed or designated as a nonprofit. So there's been some delay, they just haven't gotten their approval of the nonprofit yet. So in order for them to do anything additional, they need to get that approval of the nonprofit, so that we can get liability insurance and things like that. So once they can get that, then they can kind of get those things together, submit that to us and say, as far as road traffic police and things like that, what the responsibilities would be. But you want to send this out just to, have us involved as far as here's some rules and this is a perfect thing for us to do. There's some rule proposals, whether or not we want to see more or less, want some language changed.
So, I was gonna say, go ahead, but.
Yeah, so these would appear at the location, in a couple of locations, at the entrance and maybe inside. Perhaps even, we heard quite a bit from our community that's opposed to a dog park, and they expressed certain concerns that I think it would be prudent of us to address and try to minimize and mitigate any of those potential dangers, whether it's dog behavior recognition or body language, how they posture, if they are going to be aggressive or if they feel as though they may cause harm. There's several different types of signs that have been mass-produced for dog parks that offer up that sort of knowledge for people that may not be informed. That way when they enter, by entering, you're consenting that you understand. And by posting that signage, it's added education, not only for their benefit, but to help set some opposition to these.
And I guess for myself, one of my pieces with this is that in the interim, and this is one of the things that once they do get their nonprofit status was going to be one of my questions, and is now while we're in this interim period, is who's maintaining it, who's going to be posting these, who's going to be posting the rules, who's going to be responsible for maintaining these rules. I mean, because you can have an all-around friendly dog. Like I have, one of my dogs is a calmer extrovert, and we have an introvert too. But there are times where if we have friends over or we're with other dogs and they get too much on each other's nerves, there is a little bit of posturing or that body language that Adam was talking about that can happen, but that's because they can't say, hey, back off. Their way of saying that is to turn and kind of snap. And so I guess for myself, who in the interim is liable if people are out there? I understand that it's still supposed to be on leash in the interim. But while we're waiting for this to happen, while we're waiting to get a lease signed, is the city liable for
No.
everything right now?
No, we've got an ordinance in place, animal ordinance, and it requires you to have your dog on control, on a leash. So that, nothing has been changed. So when a lot of the, I guess I could say uproar occurred over the, oh, this has been approved, no. There's been discussion about how this may work. The city council has not approved there to be an off-leash dog park anywhere. what we're trying to do is compel people to take their dogs and bring them to this field rather than let them run around the fields that the kids in the leagues play on. It seemed to be going pretty well. We were just there a couple of weeks ago spreading some topsoil in the low-lying areas on the fields, and there was dog waste in a lot of areas. So I know Bruce is doing a lot of work on the field where we want to utilize, and actually all the brush has been cut down, the fences have been cleaned out. We're looking at adding a small turnaround area for parking. I still have the dog-friendly field signs. I've just been a little reluctant to put them up because if people are assuming, well, the dog-friendly field means that it's an off-leash area, no, there still is a requirement. There is a leash law in Ely. So that's, I guess, there's a couple different directions this needs to go. One, is it gonna be, if it is gonna be an off-leash dog park, you know, there needs to be some definite rules approved, put together before that is actually allowed. Right now, it's just trying to get people to take their dog on a field where, you know, the kids aren't playing Little League and softball practice and, you know, softball league. So that's kind of been my whole goal the entire time, is to get people to bring their dogs to that field rather than the other three. And I don't know how much of that's being accomplished right now, because I still seem to see people running their dogs on the other three. And then where I think some of those people used to be real diligent about picking up after other people's dogs, well, now they're probably bringing their dogs to the dog-friendly field,
Sure.
so they're not the one, you know what I
Lost
mean?
your
Yeah, so it kind of backfired a little bit, but, you know, we have the signs to say no dogs on these fields, so we could certainly do that, but, you know, we're getting to the time of the year where it's maybe not as much of an issue, you know, over the winter, but I think there's a couple different issues that are still working there. The naysayers, you'll have the naysayers.
So,
There are many, probably hundreds of communities in the state of Minnesota and the United States that have some sort of dog park. You know, I mean, there's a way to do it. I think the league has a whole bunch of guidance on it. But I am one who has a dog that I probably wouldn't bring her to a dog park. I would. She's a very outgoing dog, but the friendliest dog you'd ever meet, and she'd probably get bit by somebody else's dog because she is too friendly. You know, so people need to also take that decision on their own. You know, if you don't want to bring your dog to a dog park, well, then you don't bring it to a dog park. You know, there's plenty of opportunities in Ely, in this area, for people to exercise their dogs. We've got 1 million acres of Superior National Forest. You know, we have multitudes of trails in town, not just in Trezona, but other undesignated trails where people are walking their dogs all the time. You know, probably don't have any issues or any conflicts. So yeah, I think them trying to figure out how to be a nonprofit, that's Bruce's issue, however they do that. But I think as far as Park and Rec, you guys will have to think about, okay, what are the rules we feel definitely have to be followed, and what are the, you know, what do we see as the requirements to allow them to utilize city property for this use? And again, it started out dog-friendly field. I know it sounds like a stupid name, but it meant the field to bring your dog, you know, rather than running them on the softball field. So
Is there a possibility of, I mean, and where I'm coming from with this question is, I live right over on Patterson Street. We are one of 2.5 houses that actually put their dog on a leash, and I have a fully fenced in backyard. I put my dogs on a leash every time we go outside the yard. There's only one house that does it 100% of the time, and one who does it some of the time on the entire block. Is there any possibility of, I guess, enforcement of the leash law, or or even enforcement of some of the stuff that's happening while we're waiting to get that in writing? Because, I mean, we don't really have that ability to.
yeah, no, and it's a matter of, in this facility on city property that is, you know, controlled by the Ely City Council, and Park and Rec will give a recommendation, this is what you'd like the rules to be there. You know, as far as, yeah, people walking their dogs off leash, typically if there's not a problem, there's not a problem. You know, if there's a problem and they're cited, or somebody calls and the dog runs off, gets picked up and hauled as people having dogs on their own property off leash, I don't know, maybe in Scottsburg in this No.
As long as the dogs are
Under control.
Under
It's
control.
Under control, yeah. That's
Yeah.
usually the
Yeah.
broad spectrum of the definition is under control, and that's, I mean, you'll see people that walk, and again, it goes back, it's the owner's responsibility, you know, again, whether this field eventually becomes an off-leash dog park or whatever, you know, they're still responsible for the dangerous dog ordinance, you know, laws, state law, all that stuff still applies, and it, you know, like I said, all these cities, when I worked in Dakota County, worked for the parks, we had an off-leash dog park, a couple of them, and, yeah, you get calls there, you just deal with them, and it comes down to the owners, they have to be, oh, my dog is a little bit aggressive, I'm not gonna bring you to a dog park. No different than walk on down the street and having it on a leash, so it doesn't, you know, run into somebody's yard or attacks somebody, things like that. So that, you know, it falls back on those people, and I think overall, these have been very successful, because it does help mitigate, and you can tell people, this is a place where you can go, these are the rules you need to follow, you know. It's kind of a self-policing system, hopefully.
real quick, under these rules, did we want to mandate that the dogs must be licensed?
Well, that goes without saying.
Now, so go back to the argument about visitors.
That's the only problem is if you get outside visitors.
Oh, people that are visiting, yeah, sure.
Some leniency there, but otherwise,
Yeah, otherwise, I believe the majority of people utilizing this would probably be city residents.
so.
I think
Let's add that to the rules.
by a little peer pressure, you know,
I
as
think,
I've said it many times, I mean, I don't know why we're trying to put a dog park, and I think there's only about 40 dogs.
totally.
You know,
I think
it's,
there's something to be said on that note too of, and we've talked about this here before, there's a lot of, the dog culture in this town is there's a lot of awareness of what dogs can't do and where dogs can't go. But we can work on balancing that of where dogs can go, which like this is dog living field. There's these dog poop bag stations at this trail, this trail, this trail. And when you register your dog, you get this information packet on whatever it is. And that's making stuff up beyond there. But I do think there's like some potential in, again, not just making it like, dogs can do anything they want in this town. That's not where I'm coming from.
yeah.
But just like evening out, so we know what dogs can't do, but what can dogs do? And what is the incentive behind registering your dog? And it, you know, so anyway, I just wanted to
I
throw
know
that out there.
I know we have a lot of people that are responsible and do pick up after their dogs, because I think that garbage can gets filled up
Mhm.
almost on a weekly basis on the Trezona Trail, so
Sure,
it's
totally.
got an affectionate name from the public works guy. In the winter, it's pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's, I think, establishing a couple of these areas. Obviously, the Trezona Trail is on leash, you know, our dog's under control, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that if you're yelling after your dog constantly to come back to you, you have your dog under control, you know what I mean? So, and there's plenty of other areas where, out the Lucky Boy, out behind Rock Apartments, and the snow dump area, I mean, there's a lot of those areas as well that people will go to, and, you know. And Bruce, I gotta tell you, he's got a lot of passion, he wants to continue to make this work somehow, so I think at some point, you're gonna have everything together, and then it'll come as a recommendation from Park and Rec to the council,
Mhm.
and it might require a couple of community meetings, just seeing the naysayers and those that have some concerns, and again, using examples like Scott said, of those that, communities that have them that really haven't had any issues, or here's how they countered those issues. You know, I see a lady walking her dog every day, she's got a muzzle on,
Mhm.
you know, so
Mhm.
obviously she knows that the dog might have some tendencies, or, you know, or if another aggressive dog comes after hers, she doesn't want her dog biting that other dog. So to me, it doesn't I'm not fearful for her, I just see she's responsible with her dog and she's walking it on a leash, you know. So I think we can get beyond the naysayers somehow on this and
Yeah.
make some compromise and try to get the dogs off of the actual sports fields next summer. That's the main goal, I think.
Yeah.
What part of the city is in charge of dog registration things?
Dog registration is just an administrative People come in, they register their dog. We also have them at the license bureau
Yeah.
and down at the PD where people can purchase the license. If a dog is running at large and the PD picks it up and it's unlicensed, well, then that person, when they pick up their dog, they have to pay the fine and they have to get their dog licensed. So as far as enforcement, that's how the enforcement works. So if you're a responsible dog owner, your dog never leaves your yard, you're not likely to send the police chief to your house to call him down to your door and give you a citation. But, we wish we had more dogs registered just for the simple fact, if your dog happens to get out, it's very easy to return your dog.
Totally.
But it has a tag and we know it's registered. Scott can just drive it right home. Rather than bring it to the pound.
And that's the main reason for that program.
Right.
So you just get, you see people post on WhatsApp, Ely, oh, yellow line, no tags. It's like, even if people just put a tag with a name and a phone number for somebody, that's the thing. I think they'll give it to you, you let your dog out. Don't have to call around or whatever, the tags and stuff, but that's the main thing, and it's a very reasonable price to do that. And like I said, when you're getting, usually people that get the tickets, it's the dog, it's found without tags, things like that, it's found other license, then it's obviously not under control.
So it sounds like what, I've heard a summary a couple times of when Bruce et al. Has the nonprofit status. We'll have another formal meeting with them, looking at their official rules, so we should just be prepared to.
Yeah, I think it's a good talking point, it's a good, everybody can kind of maybe go back and say, oh, next time we bring it up, these are the things that I thought about or whatever. Yeah, it's nothing that we have to set in stone right now.
But I can tell you, he's cut a lot of brush down there.
Yeah.
So it's good, because that was something I was actually waiting for some community service folks to come available. And go, oh boy, I got a good job for you. About 40 hours of cutting brush and ruining the fence, but yeah, it looks pretty nice down there. I think we can accomplish something there, whether it just be on-leash, dog-friendly area, just like we've got now, but on the wrong fields, or if it morphs into something a little more, we'll see what for one, if you can put it together, and two, it'll be ultimately the council's decision upon recommendation from Park and Rec as to whether to have one or not.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Did we already touch on the single track bike trail?
Yeah.
Or do we need to, okay.
They're already touched on that.
Okay.
So we're good now.
All right. So going down into old business then, we've got the North Country Trail updated memorandum of understanding. This is the one that after Ozzy came last meeting, the meeting prior, we had talked about having some edits made onto the memorandum, including about like the 3 signs, and he came to our last meeting to answer some of the questions that we had. And the reason that it's included in this one is for everybody to look over, to review, and then to see if we wanted to approve the memorandum of understanding to get the city of Ely and the North Country Trail on the same page and get it on to council.
How big are these signs, like?
18 by 18. Number 6 on here.
Yeah, okay.
There are gonna
Well,
be
they should
3
be
of them.
bigger. No, I'm excited to have the trail town
Totally.
designation.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I actually got a call from the Itasca County economic developer wondering how Ely established itself as a regional hub for trails.
Right.
And how we got that designation. I said, well, because we designated ourselves. Oh, I don't know. What are you talking about? Yeah, but it's just one more little thing, That was funny to talk about us in Grand Rapids, going, oh, how do we, okay, ourselves designated as a trail.
Yes.
Regional trail.
move that we approve the memorandum, I can't say this word, memorandum,
MOU.
feeling tongue tied, the MOU between the NCT and the city of Ely.
All right,
Second.
Julie seconds, wonderful. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful.
And Julie and I will continue to participate on the, what's the board called?
North Country Trails Committee, I think.
Committee.
Yeah.
Ozzy, Julie, Eva, myself, right, that's four. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. Alrighty, now on to the main event, the comp plan. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot of stuff in here about things that have been received over the past couple of months on recommendations of different ideas on what to look into. There are some grant ideas. Abby made a, kind of a write-up of some possibilities for a Park and Rec staff member. We have our budget in here as well. So I guess my question is how do we want to go about this? Do we want to look at the current comp plan and make edits? Do we want to go and rather make goals of, in 1 year from now, what do we want to see have accomplished? In 5 years from now, what do we want to have accomplished in 10 years? What would be the preferred kind of method or everybody? Or Carol, do you have a suggestion?
What I would suggest is short-term, mid-range, and long-term goals. Just like the projects we kind of discussed tonight. Some of these have taken decades, some of them take, a year. Right now, pickleball, the rec center, that's kind of a short-term goal, I would say, in the next, year to develop that project, and then, move it forward for funding. The dog park, another short-term kind of plan. The mountain bike, completion of the mountain bike single track trails is kind of what could be on your short-term plan. Now, I read through there and there's some ideas on some additional leagues and some additional programs. You gotta look at, okay, how do we can we accomplish that in a year? Or is that something we look at accomplishing in 5 years? To me, short term's a year, mid range is 5, and then long is 10, at least on the sense of park and recreation projects. If you look at what we've done over time, I kind of ran through with Scott today, even a short list of what we're working on, and things like future staining of the log structures in Whiteside Park. That's going to be a pretty big expense. We did it probably about 10 years ago. So that's something we got to keep on the list. So we put kind of a list of short range, mid range, and long range projects, and then figure out how we're going to. These are kind of in the short range what we do in the next year. This first, second, third, and fourth quarter are kind of what we're working on here internally. So when you talk of what activities are going on in park and recreation, these are things that are being worked on by myself, Scott, other administrative staff. Of course, Public Works Department does a lot of the maintenance, building maintenance, does all the facilities. So a lot of this stuff is being done, not necessarily in a specific park and rec budget. Here in this first quarter of 25, what are we looking forward to? Working on these leases, outdoor skating rink. We'll start late this month, early December. We're looking at 3 rink attendants there. And then, of course, working with ECR on their work. Fat Tire mountain biking out at Hidden Valley. We work with Ely Nordic Bike and Ski Club on that. Trezona Trail, Ely Nordic Ski Club, Bruce grooms that, City of Ely pays for their efforts in grooming that. Then of course, Hidden Valley, we're out there pretty much on a daily basis, plowing, sanding the road, assisting where we need to. And then we're the fiscal agent for the grant and aid funds that come through for both Ely Igloo, Hidden Valley, Prospectors Loop ATV Trail. We're working with all those groups right now on equipment maintenance or purchase of equipment for maintenance. Also, this year we'll be working on phase 3, Mount White Trail development, archaeological study, finalizing the design, hopefully bidding in March. Then of course, Whiteside, the rink, the skating rink in the winter, Winter Fest, assisting with all of that. So, you know, I'm just looking at this as is what we're doing in the short term for the next year. And then we get into second quarter, we start working with the league softball. I didn't even put Little League there, but every year we help the Little League with their field prep first thing, and then of course pickleball. Looking at funding. That's something I see us doing in the next year. Another project we've been working on for some time, Miners Lake on the east end, where we built the parking lot, built the trail down to the access point. We've got the opportunity to get some DNR funding for a kayak dock. So it'd be a handicap accessible kayak dock, where actually you sit your kayak on it, you get in it, and it rolls down the rollers into the water, and when you return, it's the same way. So that's something we're working on with the DNR, totally funded by the DNR. We have to participate with some in-kind installing it and whatnot. The other thought, actually one of our election judges brought this to me. We have 2 fishing piers on the west end of Miners Lake. The new one was added by the DNR a few years ago to make it handicap accessible. They gave us the old fishing pier that's there. So one thought is, do we look at moving that down to the east end of the lake and then having a fishing pier down there as well? Where the folks ice fish there in the winter, they don't ice fish more than 50 feet off the shore because it goes, it's pretty deep right off the shore. So it sounds like people have pretty good luck fishing right off the shore, even on that end of the lake. So the thought is, do we take that other fishing pier and bring it down there? It's something we'll have to look at, but I think that's an opportunity to provide additional recreation activities down that end of the lake. Might be some people upset because they really like fishing off of it there. Sounds like they have good luck off those docks for smallmouth and rainbow trout. So that's a project we're looking at. The dock needs a little bit of work, but that would be some repair work we've incorporated into our operating budgets. But, you know, it's some of those things. Also, Trezona Trail fencing, trail maintenance. The split rail cedar fencing that has fallen down on that over time, that was put up in 1996. I remember because I was rollerblading on the trail, I think the day after they paved it. But
It's the perfect time to roll.
yeah, 6. But it's, you know, so we've been looking at additional funding sources for that fencing. It's about $125,000 or $140,000 project. This is mainly on the west end of the Trezona Trail, right where the snowmobile and ATV trail are nearby. So we're going to keep working with Wasabi Trail. They're looking at doing a repave of the west Shagwa section, so where it crosses by Feral Gas, and that stretch is probably the oldest stretch coming down. The blacktop's a little chopped up. So I'm hoping when we work with them on that project, I can get them to add some onto this fencing on the trail. So I know that's been brought up over time. For the winter, we'll probably work with the ski club and put some safety fencing along there again, just to keep the 2 trails separated. But that's...
Would temporary snow fencing even work?
That's what we use. Yeah, the orange safety, snow fencing, yeah. Yep. So a lot of times if folks come on a snowmobile, they get to the tee, they don't know which trail goes where, so it's just a matter of trying to get them to split off there. So that's something that's always a safety concern here as the winters come upon us. And then also next year, looking at some patching on the Trezona, Wasabi, and then it's always all the daily maintenance we do on the trails and in the parks. And this summer, we have a lot of vandalism in the parks. park bathrooms, I mean, a lot, more than I've seen in the past. So we're looking at doing some different things for next summer to try to catch those hooligans. Maybe they graduated from Gumbo. They're not kids that go to ECR, I can guarantee you that. But,
If they get caught, they can cut some brush.
yeah, I don't even know if I want to help it. I'll send it. Yeah. But no, and then it's, you know, the mountain bike trail obviously is gonna be a big one for us next summer. $400,000 project, and then towards the end of the year, we're right where we're at today. Shutting everything down, winterizing things, getting ready for the next season. So that's kind of short-term goals. You know, mid-range goals, again, I think pickleball, I think that is something that continues to come up. And I think the school wants it out of there, if I'm not mistaken. School has some different needs for that space from what I've understood, so I think we gotta help them plan for. And I know community ed was, who paid those the last time? We used to give money to community ed. And they spent it all on paving pickleball courts. But now, that funding goes to ECR. So, but yeah, that's kind of the mid-range goals, you know, in my mind. I know you had listed some additional leagues. You know, is there some interest within the community? I know soccer, quite a few years ago, a couple of parents, actually the dog-friendly field is where they made that into a soccer field. But it was so short-lived, I think, as their kids grew older, they went on to different activities, and then soccer just couldn't make it. I think ultimate frisbee, I see that a lot happening in Whiteside in that open field. You know, so some of those group activities like that, like the beach volleyball, I don't know how much we need to get involved with those because they're kind of organically being organized. They're not like a little league, they're not like a league softball. You know, it's more or less just 15 people getting together on a certain day and then having some pickup games of volleyball or whatever. So, you know, again, I don't know how much participation we need to take in those, as they are like the other groups in town, that Little League, Blue Line, kind of will provide the facility. They organize their events. Seamers Park Pavilion, that space obviously gets rented out a lot for birthday parties, graduations, other rec activities down there. Over time, next summer, I think we should look at that and see what some thoughts are and improvements. In my time, we've sided it, roofed it, fixed a lot of the facilities there, but it's just like everything else. We got to continue making those improvements. We got the other stone buildings down there that we've always kind of struggled with. What do we use them for, Bill? The stone buildings down there, the kitchen and the old changing house building, you know, that was once used in a different capacity than what they're being used for now, but you know, I was open to ideas. We did have Michelle Moore they had a concession down there. I think they ran it for 2-3 years. And she couldn't make it work. There just wasn't enough activity to, you know, pay the staff and justify it. But now we're working with Julie and ECR on putting some canoe racks, kayak racks down there.
I have a little news about that. The Outdoor Club kids wrote a grant proposal to the Northland Foundation Youth and Philanthropy Program, and were awarded $1,000
Oh, sweet.
That's awesome.
for materials and, you know, helping to get that going.
So that's some materials needed to build those canoe and kayak racks. And kind of what our thought has been is put a cable with combination locks, and if a family wants to go use, you give them a combination, they borrow it, they bring it back, they put it back into place. You know, it's kind of, the thought was for anybody, use it for free.
Yeah.
You know, probably do it through City Hall or do it through ECR or something like that, because we do have some good kayaks and good canoes. So there's always those little projects too that kind of fit in with the other things that are being done at the park facilities. The playground at Semers Park, that was put in by the J.C.'s. J.C.'s raised all the money to pay for that playground. J.C.'s don't exist anymore. So when that starts to age out, we've replaced some of the equipment over time, but we'll get to the point, I would say in the next 10 years, probably need to replace some of that equipment. So then it's a pretty big task to come up with $50,000 worth of playground equipment. But that's where we've got actually 3 spectacular playgrounds in Ely. And I could tell you, 15 years ago, I could tell you there's one pretty nice one at Semers Park. The other 2 were not very spectacular. You know, but over time, the city did Whiteside Park, and then the school, of course, did their beautiful playground facility. So but 15 years from now, probably be looking at what do we need to do with those playground facilities. So those are the long-range plans. You know, because you replace it today, you gotta always be planning for the future as well. So yeah, maintaining all these existing facilities. One other project that we kind of put on a mid-range when we're talking today is we've talked about a bog walk on this White Cedar Swamp on the west end of town, at the entrance of town. And actually, when we're talking about the North Country Trail, I kind of mentioned it to Ozzy as well. You know what, there could be a pretty cool opportunity to kind of do a little loop, because when we did the wetland mitigation, it's a pretty big swamp there, and it's pretty unique. Yeah, and it's nice and close. You don't have to hike way out in the woods to get to it. So that's something that would be a mid-range plan on the list that we put together. So just some ideas. And the comp plan we put on there, mid-range plan, is updating the park and recreation portion of the comp plan. Because when this was rewritten a few years ago, a lot of time was put into writing it. And it was set up in a way that each section could be pulled out and thought, oh, we need to update this a little bit. So that's, I think, where we're at. But no, I think, a long-range plan, like Adam has talked about a sports zone. You know, that's one of those long-range plans, because it might take 5+ years to come up with the funding for that. Do all of the things that you put on the comprehensive plan happen? No. But I tell you what, if we go back and we think about what we're talking about 15, 16 years ago, and you look at what's been done, you know, it's kind of surprising that all the things that have been done. The ADA path down at Semers Park, you know, that was something we got a IAAA regional trail grant to do. At the same time, we paved the gravel section on the Trezona Trail. If you remember the back 40 that was always gravel, that was because the city didn't own that piece of property. The city had to purchase that from the Latterell family, and then we could pave it. So that was a pretty big expense, but it's probably one of the nicest sections on that trail. You know, it's all city owned. So yeah, to me, that's the way I look at it. Short, mid, long range. For other projects with the city as well, that's kind of how we look at it. What can we do in the next year? What do we do in 5? What do we do in 10 years? So.
I guess I have a little bit of a question, because one of the things that we keep coming back to is having a park and recreation staff person. And I mean, we talked about, you know, where would they be set up? Could we set them up over at the trailhead building, which is why the one email I mentioned about like what's our connection to the trailhead, because we kept getting updates and we're like, what are we doing with it? If it's, I guess, is it something that is needed at this point even?
Well, the thought is, is it an intern position?
It
where
could be
through
the intern work stuff.
through the college?
Yeah.
You know, are there opportunities for internships for those that are in the recreation program?
Depends if they want to be here.
Yeah, I know that's a big, over the years, we do get interns like at our water and wastewater plant. They used to be pretty consistent every year. We've had interns in the police department. There may be the opportunity there if somebody is local or wants to stick around for the summer. You know, is there ability to have them assist in that capacity? Because all of our summer workers, they're the ones maintaining all of these, doing all the maintenance at the facilities. So then it's a matter of what outside of that would you like them to do? The trailhead, that's gonna be more tourism, information, that sort of thing. Whether we work with Forest Service like we've intended, or it comes to the, somebody paid through, the lodging tax or how that works. I don't foresee it being a city-paid full-time position over there. But within the recreation, we hire winter rink attendants. We used to have a beach attendant. What ended up happening with beach attendants is they ended up being paid babysitters for parents that didn't have child care set up. So it ended up being a little scary. You hire a 16-year-old to be a beach attendant, and all of a sudden there's 15, 9-year-old kids down there. Like, wait a minute, this isn't what we were doing. So I guess it's a matter of what is it outside of what's being done. ECR, having the staffing at the rec center. And the other thing is it's a full-time position is with benefits is very tough. We've cut back. We've cut back a public works employee. Why? Because we've had escalated costs. Trying to adjust for inflationary increases and try to keep our levy at a reasonable level. So those are the things. If you figure out a way how it can be funded, through possibly an internship or, other, we've got AmeriCorps person right now that's working on trees in Ely. McBride, Claudia, if there's opportunities there to get people like that, because when Claudia came and said, well, I'm getting paid through AmeriPrize, I think it's AmeriCorps to, AmeriPrize, isn't that the laundering company or something? But anyway, so she, is taken care of working with the tree board, which is great. But my thought is there's not 40 hours a week there, Is there opportunity to work on some other things? So I think we paired and shared with other groups, maybe some of these other things that you're interested in, we might be able to, facilitate that, but it's.
I've been the one putting together this Parks and Rec coordinator job, just like in my time. And my vision in terms of what I can see is somebody who is, it doesn't have to be full-time. I don't think that has to be part of this proposal by any means. But I do think having somebody in that position, and it's on page 52, this proposal that I made, that really will enrich the quality of life for people in Ely and generate revenue on its own. It also, to me, like, the things that come through this board, there's a really high demand and like lots of requests and lots of ideas. And the Trail Center is kind of like a last minute curveball of like, wait, what's happening? Why is it coming across our agendas? But I really see potential for somebody with a Parks and Rec title holding some of this. And the community sports that I mentioned is like, I don't necessarily want to introduce any more sports, but I think having somebody holding the net so soccer doesn't fade away just because there isn't parents involved. And I guess like softball has really low enrollment in their leagues right now, but like I think that I believe that if somebody was like hosting like, hey, here's your sign up event, here's the things that you can do at Ely, I think people will start showing up. But when it's just held within like communities and parents and friend groups, it's really easy for it to just fade away. You don't even know. And so that's where I'm coming from. I mean, we also talked about like, sorry, I don't like to say the word like, but having these canoe racks and needing to get a combination. If somebody can run up to the trail center and talk to whoever's staffing the trail center and be like, how do I get into these canoe racks? It just, to me, makes sense to have a Parks and Rec position housed at the trail center doing all this stuff, including generating its own revenue. And to me anyway, we don't even have to get into the nitty gritty. To me, I put that on the comp to go into that. Is it worth it? Could we do that? Is it worth it? And what would it look like?
Ely last had a park and rec director in 1991. She was cut in February of 1990, October of 1991, being at that time there was budgetary cuts. Also at that time, they used to have an active ski hill. So part of it was managing actual recreation facilities for, people had to pay to use. So it was more, on that, in that line. I think if the city owned an arena or some, not saying the city doesn't want to. But just saying, if you did, that's where some of those duties get rolled into, and that's where the revenue comes.
Right.
I attached Silver Bay, like, was a good example. They're smaller actually community than ours. Their job duties as well as they have a city-run campground. The arena manager is actually partially paid by the county because the county owns the building. And then they mow the parks and stuff in the summer, and so there's that aspect. So it just gotta, I'll just act quick. In my mind, the city holds the facilities here, but we don't hold the programs, and that was something new to me that when we came here is, I'm trying to, that's the club, the blue line panels, okay, I want to join baseball, that's the Little League blue line panel. There isn't like, we go to the city, we'll sign up. So like Carol said, you have to look at, I think creating this list is a good idea, but then you just have to say, okay, what would that person do that's not already done?
Or, like you said, being more of, having the organizations, and I think that through our process of doing these leases, and I don't even want to call them leases, it's more of an agreement of maintenance. A maintenance agreement on these facilities with the other groups, with the girls softball group, which is through the school, just maybe having people understand if you have kids interested in playing softball for the summer, having a link on our website where Scott can easily put that link on there and provide that information to people that are interested, so that people aren't lost in the shuffle. And I think what you need to really be aware of is it's the lack of numbers a lot of times in keeping a lot of these programs going. I know you had on your garden club. Well, I know our garden club that takes care of the gardens in Whiteside Park, it's down to about 2 or 3.
Yep.
It's not a growing group, it's an aging group, and what ends up happening is people form new groups. Instead of helping the existing groups, it seems like we get new groups forming all the time, and it's like, I wish they'd go and help this group. We get Master Gardeners Club now that's doing some projects, which is great, but it's now the Garden Club, and she's came to the committee a couple times. They do an excellent job. Excellent. We help them every Tuesday with their gardens, but they're 1 or 2 members away from non-existent. And then we have to.
It's like clubs at the college, the 2-year college, like, we're gonna start a wrestling club, and it's there for a year, and then those students are gone.
Yeah.
My students last year started an EMS club, but the students this year don't wanna keep going with it. Because it's like this 2-year cycle of, yeah.
Parents are a lot the same, like I said, with soccer. We had a group of parents at that time, but their kids moved on to whatever, I think moat biking actually. So then moat biking steals the kids away from these other programs. So that's, I guess, you just gotta be aware that if you gotta have your expectations set where we feel we can, make it work.
I think a lot of small towns work the coordination through community ed. I wonder if our community ed would be willing to consider, partnering with the city for those things.
You know where who is Crystal doing
Yes.
community ed?
And they have a sign up online, new software program for doing things that would, I think, would be helpful.
Maybe that's a question for Chris.
Yeah, I think, sorry, you should go.
I was just gonna ask, because I genuinely don't know, so for some of these things, like with Little League and like with soccer, are the coaches and that kind of thing paid through the school, or is it
No.
completely volunteer? Huh?
Those aren't paid at all.
Unless it's an actual school, like varsity or something like that, some of those positions are paid.
Okay.
But all the clubs are not.
I don't know if like, cause if they had, like, for football coach, like you see postings all the time for like a full-time football coach.
High
or
school
they have one
program,
For a high school.
High school, yeah.
But, yeah, but
These
I'm
types of
thinking,
activities, no, it's the parents volunteering. And if you do start the path of paying coaches, your entry fees are gonna go up so high, then you're not gonna have,
You're gonna price participation out.
yeah,
Mhm.
participation is gonna falter. So that's where, even the league softball, which I know Lisa's has participated in the past, they try to keep their membership as low in cost as they can. You know, and then it's like, oh, the facilities need a lot of improving. Yeah, you increase the fee and then nobody can participate and the whole thing dies anyway. So I think it's, that outreach piece, so I think there's something there for sure. Just making sure people are aware, especially if they're new to town. Like when Scott and his wife moved here, it's like, okay, our kids play hockey, our kids play baseball, how does this work? And, you know, luckily he's got some neighbors that are really involved, so, you know, he found his way pretty easily. But what about people that live out in Morris Township, Fall Lake, Burnside, that maybe don't know because they're not as connected? Maybe that's where we have an opportunity to bolster our park and rec portion on our website. You know, that's Scott. That isn't hiring somebody, that's
Sure.
Scott doing that.
Yeah, and so, what I'm hearing too is maybe this isn't like an official position, paid position, but I do feel strongly that people aren't gonna show up to softball if they don't know about it, and if they don't feel like they're invited to it. So I think, outreach in general could be something that we put together of, the Parks and Rec board, the Parks and Rec website. Lists all the stuff, and then whoever's in charge.
And we
and
can
I
invite
get it
those
buried
groups.
in the website, cause I've come across many a website where they'll have the information on there, but it's buried and you have to click onto 5 different pages and know exactly where to click on those said 5 pages. So having it readily available right there as soon as they pull it up would be awesome.
I use them on the boards, using all,
Mhm.
And it would be awesome to end up in a position where, you know, we could have 2 people on staff through parking rec. You know,
Well,
volunteers
just
go
my
on.
duties for sure.
What does the roadmap begin with? What sort of support structures need to be in place?
Well, first you gotta justify the need for it, and, you know, we got an organizational chart, it's just like any business, any school district, you know, you have, here's the things you need to accomplish, you know, as a city, and for us, it's, you know, what are the critical needs? Of course, it's utilities, it's police, it's fire, it's, you know, all of those things, it's having administration staff for elections and all the rest of these things we do. And then it's just prioritizing that, okay, well, we feel we need a person for these other duties. And they can't be duties that we're already doing, or that some other group's already doing that isn't charging property taxes
Well,
for.
it sounds a lot like a chicken and an egg situation, because most of the people, you know, people visit Ely because of our parks and recreation opportunities here. And so, it seems that then, I'm not sure.
You know, it's like the events, you know, the marathon, the city invested in the development of that marathon. You know, the city put money into that for 3 years, and then the marathon was developed, and Wendy now, she organized that event. So the city did participate in it, and still does, at a pretty high level, with all the city staffing for traffic control, for all of the things that go into maintaining the park, having it available, and then the daily event. So again, a lot of our involvement is facilitating the places and a lot of those things that nobody'd be able to afford. You wouldn't be able to afford to get all that equipment to have that event. It's even 4 on the 4th, and you know, a lot of those little events that we're involved with to help those organizations, you know, accomplish that. We don't charge them. Blueberry Arts, Harvest Moon, they rent the park for $15 a day. You know, 4th of July, there's another one, you know, all the events that are held there. So I guess as far as having a staff person, that staff person would be responsible to me. you know, because I'm responsible for the council. So for me, I look at it as, okay, what am I gonna have to do? How do I justify the position so that they're busy all day and they're accomplishing something that isn't already being done by somebody
And
else?
that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
what sort of support structure would have to be in place saying, now we need a person because we've added.
I would
so
say
many
growth.
persons.
I mean, we need to see it, community growth.
Right.
You know, right now we're at 3,268 people. You know, in 1991, I'll guarantee you the city of Ely was far more populated than that, right? 1,000 more people, 600 more people.
Well, there weren't 1,000 more houses, so a lot of it's children and.
And the children are the ones that participate in all of these activities. So that's, I think that's what pushes a lot of that. You know, back in 91 or back in the 80s when there was a park and rec director, why was that? Well, they had operating ski hill. You know, for quite a few years they had the ski jump, then continued to operate after that. And of course, the cross-country ski trails have built since then as well. So that's, to me, that's what it is. It's, you know, how do we need to know how to assist those groups to continue doing what they do. You know, and it's a lot of very dedicated individuals. Ely Nordic Bike and Ski Club, you know, for generations now, it's been dedicated. It hasn't stopped. It's just a new group picks it up, or some of the old people are still involved, you know. So it's some consistency there. But yeah, for us, when I first started Hidden Valley, everything on the ledger, everything for Hidden Valley is paid for by the city. Everything. The water, the sewer, the electric, everything out there. Well, we had some real tough financial times, got unallotted by our governor on a budget. We had to figure out a way to cut some budget. Well, we turned some of those responsibilities over to the Ely Nordic Ski Club, and over a course of, I think, 3 to 5 years, kind of said, okay, now, city's paying for it this year, next year you're paying for it, you know, and that's kind of how that went. So even more so, it's been pushing some of that expense on to the groups that are participating in those activities. Because again, we're talking the city of Ely is this big, and we know we've got people from their entire area, school district wide, that are utilizing these facilities. So if it's just being paid for by the city of Ely taxpayers, that's what gets difficult. So I think, back to your question, yeah, what constitutes that is a growth in population and facilities, you know, and we're kind of landlocked on that. I mean, what we're growing as far as facilities for park and rec are really facilities that require a lot of day-to-day operations.
So for that kind of growth, we're gonna have to see quite a bit of expansion at a trajectory. Well, first of all, yeah.
It's got to go the other direction.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what we've seen again in our overall city employment. You know, it has reduced over time because we have to. You know,
So what needs to, what do you see as we look at our comp plan in 10 years? Are we just, should we, I mean, right now I just feel like in 10 years, the feedback I'm getting, you're telling us we'll be closing more facilities. And
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you gotta be,
well, it feels like in 91 it was this, you know, and then it's like we're losing things over time. Consistent, that's the
well,
problem.
we lost
Look at
the
all the
ski hill.
improvements that we've had in Whiteside Park. We've had improvement on the playground, we've had improvement on the buildings that are there. Look at all the improvements that have happened in the last
We
5
lost the
years over
ski
at
hill,
Seamers.
which I
Lost
don't know how
the
they
ski
ever
hill.
afforded to operate a ski hill. You know, and like the ski jumps, how did that ever happen? Well, you had guys like Warren Nicola and, you know, Bob Hetloff and all these guys over the years that lived and breathed ski jumping for decades. You know, and that's how those, you know, and they just over time fell off the, can you imagine what it cost to run a ski hill? Oof. You know, nothing up there was off the coast, so.
So I guess I'm getting two mixed messages then. So we are growing, and we are seeing the growth that puts us on the map, that is the road.
Recreation, we look at,
Yes.
we've developed 200 some miles of ATV trails.
We're now a trail town.
We're a regional trail center.
So
I just told you.
I think most recently, I think what you're seeing is, so like, you know, like the archery club is fairly new. I think what you would have to have spin is these clubs would no longer say, we can't do this anymore, we need somebody to take this over. Speaking from a couple of club organizations, they actually want the city to be less involved because it's more restrictive. They want to use the facilities and things like that, but was the city gonna put a $10,000 scoreboard on at the little league field? Why, you know, so we wouldn't have to. So these clubs are very invested, I think, and there's no way you're gonna take that away, and I think, like I said, when it comes to, hey, we need to field more, this and that, the city's like, yeah, well, and I think the city's there to support the role, they're not there to take the programs over. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, and that, to me, that's what would have to shift, is you would have to say, well, yeah, these clubs can't do this anymore, somebody needs to take this over.
Yeah, and I think most of them are thriving pretty well, and you look at the school right now, they are getting some money to fix quite a bit of the facilities. So I think you're gonna see the girls softball field, see some big improvements, the big ball, the veterans field, the football field, you know, there's the opportunity, the arena. So you'll see some sizable investment into those facilities. So it's not a matter of what's going to be lost, it's just you gotta be aware that we don't have the capacity to bring on additional employees with a declining enrollment and with a declining population. It's gonna make the property taxes go the opposite direction unless there is compelling, you know, we added this facility, now we really need staffing to capitalize on it. The Trailhead is more of a visitor center information place than anything else. Part of that building is constructed to be utilized by clubs, trail clubs, North Country Trail Club, Forest Service for information, that sort of thing. So if there is the opportunity to have additional activities happen there, absolutely. It's owned by the city. It's under the control of the Ely City Council, period. Nobody else has control over that building, and it'll be up to the council to decide what's done there or not done there. So there is some opportunity there. I'm not gonna say, no, absolutely not. You're never gonna see anybody from the city. I still think there's an opportunity for interns or other things, because it's gonna see a lot of traffic that way. But do I see Ely declining, and, oh, we're gonna shut down whatever, we're gonna shut down rec center? No, those will be here forever. Are we gonna have the ability to build more baseball fields? I know with the Baseball Association, they wanted to build another big field, have bigger tournaments. So is that something down the road that could be possible? Maybe, you know, if there's a way to find the funds, that's a long-range plan, you know. Does that necessarily need the city might have to have the land available. We might have to be a fiscal agent on some funds coming forward, but no, I'm not pessimistic, you know, I'm optimistic every day. So we're making things better, you know, it's just continuing to refine and make things better. And I think it's good to have optimism. I guess I don't want to be a, wet blanket on the picnic here, but, it's just to be realistic. And again, we used to have a beach attendant. If it comes down to, we think we need a beach attendant because this beach attendant can do A, B, and C, that's something we can think about. Beach attendant will cost us probably about $6,000 in the summer. And then that person we tried that through a vendor, Michelle couldn't make it work. And I mean, if you guys were around, she put a lot of effort into it. I mean, it was pretty cool. It's just spent too many days down there with nobody coming, so.
And putting that precedent, if there is a beach attendant out there, not a babysitter.
Yeah. I used, actually I staffed that with Job Force Center out of Virginia. So people looking for employment, and it was partially funded by a federal grant. Yep. We had two attendants, one was Red Cross certified in CPR and lifeguarding, and the other one was just a kid that was supposed to help mow. And, that was many years ago now. Now we posted no beach attendant, swim at your own risk.
No dogs, even though they're there every day.
Yeah.
We used to have a board down there on the building Maybe Heidi and Bill remembers it. It's probably about the size of that screen, but there was everything you could say no to, it was on that board. Yeah,
Funny.
there was. She had just been, do not have any fun down there.
No swimming.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there was talks within the PD even of utilizing the interns in the summer, more than just parking, right? Take all the parks, do things like that, so there's,
Yeah.
options there where we already have, again, taking people that we already have, is there a gap in something else that they can do, and I think that would be great for them to do good PR and get somebody out there, because, the officers get busy and stuff. I mean, that's what I did, my first thing was a park patrol person. You got out there, saw people, talked to people.
I can't recall, are any of the Ely safeties on bikes?
I think they confiscated a bike years ago, and one of the sergeants used to ride it.
So they have a
There's
plan.
actually a very intensive training program to be a certified bike cop.
Yeah.
Oh,
really?
They do it in Duluth a lot.
Yeah.
There's actually like, you need the proper equipment and all that stuff. I mean, we did it at Redmond, it's very, very useful. I mean, you can go a lot further than you think places, get to places, and then
Pretty
just,
quick.
going through alleyways, and people, they see a car coming, they duck or whatever,
Yeah.
you go through on a bike, and it's like, oh, hey, how's it going?
It just seems like something with all our trails and.
Yeah, there's been some discussion about maybe having a smaller UTV rig or something for the events that can be used for crowd control or for traffic control, whatever. So I think this list is good. This list is good to think about other things that we'd like to facilitate or foster in the community. I just don't know if it necessarily means that there's another person hired to do it. But I think with our partnering obviously with the college, having Alyssa on the board, it's, are there opportunities to get some summer workers to participate in this again? Because every year I think about beach attendant again. Every year I think, like, okay, how would we do it differently this next time? So you didn't have the issues we had those last years that I was here. We had, I don't know if anybody knows Dan Probylski, Grandpa Dan. Dan had an ice cream truck in town. They've got P&D accounting, but Dan was probably one of my last beach attendants down there. Yeah, so what was Dan at that time? In his late 60s probably. Dan's still alive, but yeah, he was beach attendant that summer just to
Just chill.
go keep an eye on the beach, make sure nobody burns anything down, But
And
yeah.
so if we have somebody down there, you don't believe that we have to have a lifeguard
No,
certification?
no, I don't think that's a necessity, is to have an actual lifeguard. But
You actually might be assuming more liability if you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the certifications now, there just isn't the want for kids to do that anymore either.
Yeah.
My girls went through lifeguard training at their school, but yeah, something to think about. Right now, it's not the budget,
Yeah.
Understood.
but
Even-
something to think about.
Even working with the college too, I mean, something that we discussed recently was working with Alyssa and some of her classes to revamp the information packet that she
Yeah,
had her
I
students
saw
make,
that information she put together.
a few years ago, where they had, not only pictures of the location, but what can all be done there, and what, probably with Whiteside, something about no dogs, kind of a thing, where to find it, what hiking trails.
Yeah, and now with some of the apps out there, I think you could upload a lot of the information and
Yeah.
put about QR codes at a lot of these sites. We're starting to do QR codes for things. The Whiteside Park, the canoe, the Voyager sculpture, that's coming. I'll be here probably first week in December.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Maybe.
It's getting in,
Maybe. Sounds promising, but
and how big is this one?
it's 14 feet long, I think. 14 or 16 feet long. Yeah. It's been at the second foundry. The first foundry burned to the ground out in Wyoming, so they had to move it to another foundry last spring. Yep. So that'll be coming here before your next meeting.
Okay.
So yeah, fingers crossed. So yeah.
I got 3 things I'll try to hit quickly. For what it's worth, coming into the community sports conversation, my intention in writing this was not that a person would take anything over. It's like, Little League doesn't need help, but let's hold it in the net, let them thrive, but also don't let other things fall through the cracks. I think is
Right.
more my intention behind that, of
Yeah.
like, if they're thriving, let them be.
Right.
But also, like, so anyway, I just wanted to.
But
More like an air traffic control.
Yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
like Ely needs.
And they need help from time to time too, and they come.
Yeah.
come
That's,
for
I
us.
So-
I was just about to say,
being
I
aware
hope
of it.
they need like all the renovations that they just did in their building that they were talking about, so.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just a note I wanted to share. Another thing to consider in needing growth to help with these decisions and conversations, you can kind of invert that a little bit too, and I think if we get a lot of stuff cleaned up and established and have better outreach about community sports and people know what's going on, people will want to stay in Ely, so I think there's like a little bit of order of events of like, if people stay in Ely, then we'll get this cleaned up and more formalized, but I also think it can work the other way too. If people show up in Ely and are like, oh, look at this place, look what you can do. And I think Ely already does that, so don't get me wrong. but-
Pickleball, I think, is a big piece of that.
Yeah.
Pickleball tournaments would be great if we had space.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, just a mindset of, yes, we do need growth, and can we invest in some things to promote growth, and try to be on that side of it. It's just an idea.
And one thing that Park and Rec, we can try to help with trying to get green spaces for some of these things, but one of the big things to get people to come to town and stay is available housing. The amount of, the Ely Rentals Facebook page doesn't get a whole lot of action. Speaking from experience when I was renting, because a lot of people who have rentals, they prefer to do a verbal, or they'll put it in the local newspaper because that's what's gotten them the better tenants. And, that
Yeah,
piece of
it's-
it. So having something where we can have it more advertised of what rentals are available for people who can't buy a house right when they come into town. Even the building that's been talked about going over, over by Grauhacker and Sibley, having something for those people to go to with Park and Rec being involved, so we can get some green spaces in there too. That would also be something that would be needed.
Well, I think the standard of living, is a big thing, and that's, I think, Ely, I think we can all tell that Ely for a small town offers a lot,
Yeah.
especially an independent school district, community college, a hospital, a clinic, assisted living, all the things that Ely has to offer for a community of 3,300 people. That standard of life is, pretty high. But yeah, it's touting that as well. It's like all the stuff we did, the broadband stuff, Ely, all that stuff we did was to bring attention to a lot of that, which again, I go to a lot of conferences across the state, and what I hear from a lot of people when they know that I work in Ely is, how are you guys doing this? I was just up there. What, you guys got a beautiful park in the middle of town, and I'm like, oh, well, that's great, yeah. Or they're up here on a canoe trip, and, there's only a trail right in the middle of town. What a spectacular resource that is, with a lake right in the middle of town. So, I think we have a lot of it. I think we have more than most. But it's, I think calling attention to some of it, maybe being a little more proactive and marketing that can certainly be done.
I'm curious for the comp plan itself, if it makes sense to adopt that handwritten list that you two put together and have that incorporated, and then, is there room, because I think, it is in line with some of the things we have been talking about. I do think there's one thing in particular that we haven't brought up that we talk about a lot, which is current and future spaces, talking planning and zoning and et cetera. That's the only thing that hasn't really been covered, in my mind anyway. But anyway, I'm just curious if we try to get into the comp plan itself, is it best to document everything we've said, or is that?
I think it's just having one-page bullet of short-term, mid-term, long-term goals, and not maybe, they don't always have to be very specific, but just, promotion of additional trail development,
Continuing maintenance of existing parks.
yeah, maintaining our existing facilities, ensuring ADE standards continue to be complied with, those types of things. And then long term, it's, yeah, what are the big, you know, pie in the sky? You know, this is what we like to,
Facilities to
Facility, you know.
our season,
yeah.
to the shoulder and off seasons,
Do we, you know, do we work with the school to expand upon some of the recreation facilities they have, the arena, those sorts of things? You know, a year ago, would we have ever believed that there is the opportunity to get $5 million for the facilities at the school? No. No. In fact, we didn't know much about it until the day they called and said, hey, Ann's gotta come and testify for this, you know? So those things happen.
Yeah, I think you don't obviously want to lay out the specifics in the comp plan, but I think, you know, so you know, you have an idea of what this list was for, right? Come up with a park and rec record. Well, that, you know, might not necessarily be what happens on it, but what did happen is conversation as far as, oh, you know, so we kind of circled back to the communication aspect.
Yeah.
You know, these programs, a lot of these programs already exist, they're being managed, how do people know about them? So I think, you know, that kind of circles back.
Nature preserves, you know, one area that I've worked with Bill on is over off of 88, Shagwa River, and then the land, the city annexed, you know, off to the east side of 88, you know, in that area. You know, what would you want to promote that for? You know, the development of nature areas. That's what I see, not retaining one city lot in the middle of a block.
Right.
I look at the areas that are currently nature, more developing the Miners Lake area, the east end like we've been working on, below the bluff by the business park lots for additional trails, you know, those types of things. That's what I see as comp planning for the future. So, and then how those get facilitated over time is what we work on. We just work on how do we accomplish those. The trailhead, we started that development in 2005. I can show you the first concept drawing I put together. It's 2005. It'll be 20 years. You know, it took that long. And begging for state funds for many years, getting 2 state bonding appropriations, a federal EDA grant during COVID, and some IRRB money. That's,
Well, I think you said it well too, is, you know, it's not coming up with a list of like, oh, let's get money, it's coming up with a list of what do you want to do, and then seeking that funding source.
because some of these things don't cost a lot. They don't cost a lot of money, but it takes a lot of effort.
All right. Anything else? Because if not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Well, I guess I'll say, I feel like I would put together this list of short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. Also, based on what you wrote, of like what's already in the works. And I will include that current and future spaces that we were just talking about. It might be a better word to encapsulate that. If that's helpful, I'd be happy to do that and submit it. Just so we have like a little bit of
Yeah.
visual closure
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that and people can take a look at
It's
it.
a working document.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Well, that's what I just, like I said, having these discussions, like I said, it wasn't, oh, we might not do the specific item that you have in there, but it created a lot of discussion and gave you ideas for the things, right?
All about it. Yeah, sometimes
Very,
it
very
is,
helpful.
you start somewhere and you're like, oh, maybe there's a better solution.
In a comp plan about 10 years ago, the IRRB group has a lot of grant programs. They came out and pretty much said any community that doesn't have a comprehensive land use plan, you can't give you money until you have a comprehensive land use plan.
Oh, interesting.
So, you know, Ely has always had one and has updated it over time, so it's easy for us. But there are a lot of communities that had to do pretty much had to do a land use plan before they could move forward on any additional projects. So, you know, it's
Scott mentions Silver Bay having a campground that is owned by Silver Bay, and Two Harbors has the same. They must work well for them because they've been around and they generate money for the city. What channels would a potential campground either within the city or in the outskirts that wouldn't have to be maintained by the city. And
We've had somebody propose a campground. Then the
so
city
rather than
limits-
focus on that, like, out of curiosity, through what channels would that pursue travel?
Well, I guess you'd have to,
Would that be Parks and Rec to put that in a long-term goal? Would that be?
I would say a long-term goal should be a campground development in the Ely area, not necessarily saying the city develops it,
Sure.
but it's saying that a campground be developed. We had the Arrowhead RV Park, which is currently for sale.
Yeah.
Now the current owners decided they want to block off the Wasabi Trail that goes through the property. That happened.
No, there's been several laws to prevent that. That's the public, we actually had a paper on that in the website.
But yeah, there's some opportunities there, but it's,
Sure.
That's nothing you feel that the city would be interested in.
I don't know, it's private, kind of a private industry, free market type situation
And
at this point.
given the community response to the RV park that was already proposed by a private business, I don't know if the city would want to have backlash on the city.
We're here to
Maybe other
facilitate and ensure proper procedures and processes are followed if somebody is to propose something. But, yeah, we've actually reached out to that owner of the Arrowhead RV. I had people interested in leasing it, and they had no interest in leasing it to anybody. So, that's alarming, and currently the price is far too high. It'd be great if we had a location, like Silver Bay or Two Harbors, or, we really don't have a location like that
Right on the lake.
right on the lake.
No, the city owns.
Yeah, no, Cedars Park is not going to be built to a campground.
Nothing out of mind next to them.
No, no. I mean, it's something to think about. McGee Drive, that area, we've got some land there, we're trying to figure out the next iteration of housing projects to get to Morgan's concern with the lack of housing. It's just the lack of substantial grant funds for housing is another issue. We're currently sitting on $850,000 IRRR money for that apartment building project that we got shorted on by the state. That's a different discussion. Still haven't given you the scoring of our application, so.
Anyways, do we have a motion to adjourn unless there's anything else?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Wonderful. We are adjourned at, oh, no, what's it? 6:58.
Next meeting will be an hour, I promise.
You're not gonna show up, right?
We've been making up time because we had so many meetings where we didn't have quorum, that's what I keep saying.
Now you've got to.
Now we've got a good crew.
Yep, just keep it here.
Yeah.